Opportunities are like present boxes. You open them, you never know what's inside, but you want to open it, right? You want to see what's inside. You want to discover, because that randomness and the knowing that there's a possible gift that you might like inside of it makes you want to try to have it, right? Or try to open it. So being an opportunist is essentially consistently looking to find present boxes to open, because they can give you some sort of benefit. We all like benefit. We all like gifts. We all like new things and novelty, right? The mystery is something that's really contagious, right? We like a good Scooby-Doo or a good thriller or suspense, because you never know what the outcome of the artwork is going to be, right? It's how curiosity works. It's how novelty works. It's why humans thrive and love to strive for it, because it's what breeds life. It makes you joyous. It makes you happy. It makes you laugh. It makes you sad. It makes you have all your emotions. Art is really beautiful in that way. But anyways, so being an opportunist is a great strategy, I would say, if you want to live for that in order to provide for yourself, right? You're always going to have some form of opportunity presented to you. Now, they're not always going to be available, so when they do present themselves, it's best to hop on it, which is the strategy of the opportunist. But there's not always positive outcomes. There's usually negative outcomes attributed to them, right? There's cons, there's negatives that likely outweigh the positives. So it's up to you to discern whether choosing to be an opportunist at a certain point in time is beneficial for you or not, right? Now, when you've turned being an opportunist into a lifestyle, you've learned to categorize it, you've gained structure within it, you've built a system around you to where opportunities consistently present themselves for you, and you hop on them and do your best to work within them, right? And you look for the positives. But what if doing this usually has negatives, right? Because there's so much randomness, there's no way you can guarantee positives, right? What if the negatives are endless? You never know if that's going to happen. You know what? There can be so many negatives at a certain period of time over and over to where you can't recover anymore, to where it's just too much. You'd have to go to extreme lengths to try to recover from the negatives out of that randomness, right? And this makes opportunities a dangerous commodity. Yes, they can possibly be good. Yes, they can possibly help you. And yes, they can possibly benefit you, which we like to see. But they can also be extremely dangerous. And if you want to coincide what an opportunist really is, or what it looks like, it's the same as being a grifter. Now, we all have conflicting opinions on grifting. You do want to have opportunities, and you do want to hop on them. You do want to make use of them. But if those opportunities come with negatives that are too powerful, that outweigh the positives to such a point that there'd be no point in even trying to join in on the opportunity or the grift, then it's a waste of time, or it's a foolish idea in the first place. So if you ask me, I would say don't be a habitual grifter. Don't be that, because the negatives are usually too random. What if the negative of being an opportunist is so detrimental the one time you think it's not going to happen that it likely kills you, or it likely puts you in such a disproportionate position that it'd be so difficult for you to get out alone? You'd need the help of the Almighty or something. And even then, you still have to put in as much effort as possible just to have any sort of standing to get back on your feet a little bit. You wouldn't want that to happen to you, right? But that's what randomness is about. It's about those opportunities. So, some people are kind of knacks for that, right? They're martyrs to the chaos and the randomness of that. They like to involve themselves in that, right? They do it for the plot, which is cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really, that's eventful. That definitely adds some spice to your life. But you have to think about where these opportunities are coming from and how many times the negatives outweigh the positives. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not always the smartest idea. I would say being an opportunist is cool at random times, right? So don't always be an opportunist. Like, yes, you can hop on them when they present themselves, but don't always do it. If it's your lifestyle, if it's your strategy, you're definitely going to come into the randomness factor. Now, think of it like this. A gambler is essentially an opportunist. They're essentially a grifter, kind of in a different light. But what they do is they play their games. They play those slots. They put in their coins, their money, and they hope for the best. But if they're putting their coins at a casino that's rigged against them and is sure to take more than what they get out, and they can't tell, then the negatives outweigh the positives, right? And if they don't ever think about this, if they don't think about what this means, or if they wasted their time being a gambler and they decide that it's better to just continue being a gambler, an opportunist, then they're essentially giving away their hard-earned for nothing. They're losing, but they're being made to look like they're winning. Right? So being an opportunist in this light is a two-way street. You can be an opportunist, but try to discern those opportunities. Make sure they're coming from a place of beneficial quality. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be somebody who's telling themselves, I could do this for life, and you're getting so many negatives that you're having to lie to yourself and say, oh, it's okay, I'll figure it out next time, on the next opportunity, or maybe the next one, the next three. And yet the negatives outweigh so much that you can't even lie anymore. So what I'd assume is that it's better to try and only hop on opportunities when you know for sure that they're going to help you out, right? When you have some sort of knowing, when you can discern at least. If you can't even tell if it's going to work out for you, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't think to continue doing that as a lifestyle. I think maybe you want to have planning instead. Maybe you want to try to build some structure. Maybe you want to try to figure out what your talents are or what your skills are and use that to try to have a plan, right? Because it's not always going to work out. What I'd assume, though, in that light is that just being a grifter is not really that good. It's not really that beneficial. And you'd rather be somebody who has a plan anyway, right? If you think about it, grifters don't have morals or standards. They're malleable. They change based on the grift, based on the opportunity. If the opportunity looks like something that is going to benefit them, but comes at the cost of their morals or their standards, that goes internal, right? Now, this may not, the cons of that may not represent themselves immediately, but later on, as they continue to grift in this way, it does have effects, and that does come back on you. If you think about how the world works or how the universe works, life itself remembers everything, everywhere. Consciousness remembers, organisms remember, life. So like humans themselves remember, animals remember, even the plants remember. The atmosphere remembers, water remembers, and sea life remembers. I know that's kind of far-fetched for people to understand, but it's because consciousness is built into everything, but on different kinds of spectrums. If you think about plant life, the way they remember is more of a subconscious kind of memory. They're not actively looking to change because they don't have the ability. Plants don't have muscles or fibers that allow them to actively change like an animal. So their memory is more subconscious, whereas an animal's memory or ability to remember is more active, like a human, right? So they play a more sentient part of memory. But the idea is that every action, everything we do, every opportunity we LARP on or we choose has memory to it. Maybe not for you, maybe you choose to forget, but those you interacted with remember. The places you've been contain memory based on what you've done there. The items that you've transacted, right? It's all memory. And so karma plays a part in this as well. Meaning the grift is bound to karma. And if your morals are not set, if you don't have morals, if you don't have a way of living that you stand on, and you're malleable, then you are essentially at the whims of the universe as a grifter, which is dangerous. You don't necessarily have a standing on yourself because you're letting the universe take over. And if you don't have alignment with some sort of honesty or authenticity, then you are essentially at the whims of what your choices are. And if they so happen to be negative and the outcomes are negative, that karma comes right back to you. Doesn't have to be immediate. This is why I say don't be a habitual grifter. You can be an opportunist every now and again, but the habit of it is a danger, right? It's the same thing as selective empathy. If you choose to have empathy for specific people, but not everybody, then when you act, your decisions are based on that. When you decide that you have empathy for your family, but not for all families, you have the same quality of somebody who is a tyrant. You decide that what you do or how you operate is for your family, and everybody else does not have that same they don't get the same kind of empathy that you would give to your family, because that's how you think, that's how you operate. And so that, because of memory, they reflect on that. They see you act with them in a certain light, and that makes them portray you in that light. Whereas to your family, you decide, no, I actually have morals for them. I actually have standards. I actually care what they think or how they feel, right? Which is good for your family, but you need to extend that to everything, right? So to relay that to an opportunist, they both deal with karma. They both have consequences based on what you choose to do. So it's better to have an alignment with morals, not just for yourself and who's immediately around you, but for everybody, and you stand on that, right? That allows authenticity. That allows good representation of yourself. And then people want to believe you. Then people have more trust in or more faith in you. So say you're an opportunist and you're an entrepreneur. Now they have more legitimacy to believe in your business. And now you have more consumership because you decided that you don't want to only have selective empathy, but you have morals and standards. I hope that I got that off as well as I could. Sometimes this stuff is hard to get off, and talking about this stuff is kind of weird because most people don't really think outside the box like that. But I like to bring in my perspective because I know some people understand me and they might get like what I'm trying to get at, just because I go outside the box often. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, that's what I wanted to get on. Hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one.